So let's talk about MongoDB. Installing MongoDB is pretty straightforward, and I'm sure you can do it yourself. So I'm not going to go through that. I've already installed MongoDB on my system, and now if you go to your C program files MongoDB, you can see that there's a server folder, there's a version folder, and there's a bin folder. The bin is actually where everything happens, and there are a couple of files here that you need to run if you are going to work with MongoDB. I install MongoDB using Windows services, but you can use it in different ways. Like if you want to work with MongoDB anytime that you need, but you don't want to have it in your system opening, you can run it manually using this Mongodb and Mongo. Let's go to a Windows terminal and see how it works. So to make your life easier and work with MongoDB databases in a more user-friendly way, you can always use Mongodb Compass. It has a free edition called Community that you can download from MongoDB database website, and I'm using the version 121.2 for now. It's updating all the time, but it's enough for us. And let's connect to the default server. We don't need to specify any connection string for the time being, and I just can connect here, and these are my databases. And let's check my books shop DB that I just created using MongoDB shell. As you can see, there is a books collection in here. If you go back and check your shell, you can see that we created the database right here, and in this line we specified that the new data, this object, should be inserted to books collection. There was no books collection before we ran this line. MongoDB creates it for you when it doesn't find a collection with the name that you are asking for. It just assumes that you want it and goes ahead and create it for you. So as I said, that's the default behavior of MongoDB. If there's something already exists, it uses it, and if it doesn't, it creates it. So if I click on this books collection, I can get to the documents inside it, and here you can see the exact object that I used shell to insert it. So shell is very powerful. You can do anything with it: inserting, updating, deleting data from any collection, working with collections, working with databases, importing databases, and everything else. But as developers who want to work with database, most of the time you are using Compass and your own C# code to work with MongoDB. Sometimes in some situations you need to work with shell and their commands, but that's not the case for many developers. So let's go back to our project and load data from MongoDB. Right now we are simulating data using C# objects, and that's not what we are here for. So let's add MongoDB Driver, and to do so, let's go to NuGet Package Manager. I go to browse and search for MongoDB Driver, and let's install it. So installation was successful, and now we can go to this books controller and remove all these lines Also, I don't need this book list for now. And let's add an instance to our MongoDB client. To do so, let's add new MongoDB driver client. Mongo client, and the connection string is like this, I guess. Yes, MongoDB localhost, and the port is 27017, and then want to connect to our database using db like this. Client is what we are going for, and get database, and our database name was my bookshop db, and the collection for us is var books and db get collection. It's a generic type, so you need to specify the type that you want to convert back to, and our type for the collection is book. So let's look for books collection inside db, and now let's return back this books to the client. So if I run the project now, I expect to see the list of books in my MongoDB collection in my application. So it's not working the way I expected. Let's see what is wrong. API and book. Okay, the problem was that I skipped a few lines of code there. I have to find and query data from the collection. Otherwise, you see the whole object of your collection here, and that is not what we are looking for. So let's go back to our project, and let's add another item here, book list, and go through books and find and use filter definition for book, and it's empty for the time being, and let's convert it to list, and now let's return back the book list. So this is just we querying data from database with an empty criteria. There is no filtering. We want all data, and to do that we use this filter definition with empty property. So let's run the project again and see if we solve the problem or not. So this time if I refresh this API book, I get another error like this, that is saying that the ID does not match any field or property of a book. So we are missing an ID property for our book model. Let's go back and add that book.cs. We need a property, and the property could be a string of ID. And now let's run the project. So if I refresh the page, I get another error saying me that converting or deserializing from object ID to a string is not possible. There are two ways to solve this. You can use object ID as your type, or you can find a way to deserialize the object ID to a string and use a string inside your projects. So let's go back to our project, and here I can use object ID, which is from MongoDB namespace. And now let's run the project. So let's come here and refresh. And the element name is not match any field or property of class bookshops models. I think this is because we are not using the proper casing in our document. So let's go to Compass and edit this one. And we should use or keep the casing. There are maybe other ways to solve this problem, and there's a typo here. Okay, let's update our database, and now let's go back and refresh the page. Okay, we get the data this time, and let's go to our main page, and you can see that the name of the book and the year of the book is appearing right here. Of course, there are other ways to solve the problem with casing of your objects, but we created the object using shell, and that's not what we usually do. We send data from our application to database of MongoDB and query them back. So if you use the normal way of working with MongoDB, you won't hit any problems. There are other ways to solve the problem, but for this beginning of tutorial, I think we are good. There are other ways to solve the problem using attributes on your models and everything, but for this tutorial I think this is enough and we are good to go. Before we go to the next video and talk about how to insert data to your MongoDB database, let's change one small detail about our model. Right now, if I come to API and call for book, I get the name and the year and the price, but there is this big object that is our object ID, and we didn't plan for it, and we are not going to use all these details. The only thing that we are interested in is the ID. We want a serial number, a code, or an identifier to be able to search for it and find it in our database. And this is just too much for us. For any project, this is too much. So to solve this problem, let's change our ID property.